Virtue and Vice, The Complete Guide of Vigilantism by Nam Zart. Summary: Beast Ozai's experience in a world of heroes and villains. Takes place after the end of the Beast and right before the sports festival in My Hero Academia. Chapter 1. Quotation marks. Mine has been a life of much shame. Dazai Osamu. ... The chill that racked up his body was the first thing he noticed. It permeated through his skull and spread throughout his limbs. It was the maw of burning cold that devoured his body and dug its teeth into his flesh, of his soul as if to tear it apart and consume him entirely. Yet he found that this was preferred compared to all the encompassing numbness that followed. It could almost be seen as peaceful if he could look past the disconnect between his body and soul. A tug of war it seemed to have with itself. Every tug was hot iron that flooded his non-corporeal sense, his numb body and squirming soul. At a war with himself, it was. Or perhaps it was more akin to dragging a corpse along a battlefield with no limbs to hold up your own body. This dragging turned to pulling and pushing, lifting, dropping, mixing until it felt like a rope drawn too tight, and then he snapped. There was something cold and wet pushing into his back. Vaguely he was aware he shouldn't even have a back or acute awareness to feel it. He had died and succumbed to the alluring feeling of nothing. And here he was, feeling something cold and wet soaking through his clothes and onto his back. Clothes, mind you, he shouldn't be able to feel. This set alarm bells off in his head. The wrongness of being able to feel, able to think. What a confusing thought to think it was. He was starting to feel other parts of his body as well. Toe, finger, shoulder, knee, neck, stomach, nose, and his head. The next sense that was thrust back into him was smell. Mold and mildew upon a rust and brick, smoke and smog in a crisp, cool air. When ringing turned to muffled tapping of feet and voice, honking of horns and buzzing of lights, he was again slapped by how wrong this was. His pulse spiked, and that was something the dead did not have. Eyelids flew open, and the sight that greeted him was surrounding brick and the night sky. He was in an alley, and very regrettably, he might add, alive. His first words coming back from the dead, there was no possible way that he survived that fall, were, "Oh, you've got to be fucking with me." ... Dazai decided that yes, the world had to be fucking with him. That or this was his own personal hell, which for all he never really believed in the afterlife. That would make much more sense than revival. Unless you were that rat, humans don't come back from the dead. Death had to be the end. He needed it to be the end of him. That was the point of anything he did. Going against what he knew Oda had wanted for him, pulling Atsushi back into the dark, preparing the world for Theodore, for all of it to be rendered moot because of what? Couldn't even kill himself properly? He laid on the cold, wet floor in clothes too big for him. Another thing wrong with him. Spiraling. It was humiliating. It was pathetic. He spiraled on the concrete for who knows how long before he went to stand. And you would think that shattering every bone in his body would have been the most painful thing he'd experience. Yet trying to stand after all your bones have been refused and de-aged or whatever was happening to his body was easily the worst of the two. He had to bite his own tongue until he tasted metal to push down the scream that almost tore out of his throat. After he frankly dragged himself to the end of the alley in hopes of figuring out where he was, the bandaged man just had to stop and stare at the sight. It was crowded and bright. Nothing new for a busy city. What was new was the walking manga panel, lizard thing, spray bottle, and everyone walking. It was a truly unruly picture. Everyone clashed with another. Not for the first time, he thought this might be hell. After prying his eyes away from a walking chainsaw, he noticed the billboards displaying news. A lady with white floating hair was talking about a villain attack at a hero school, and spelt right out in the corner was the date, May 25th, 2XXX. 2 centuries in the future. ... Dazai had ended up climbing to the top of a second-story building rooftop. Truly, for all he hates pain, his tolerance for it knows no bounds. To just think about all the information he had, he'd snatched what he assumed to be someone's phone, and now he's down 2 theories for where he's ended up. Possibility 1. He's in the future where the majority of people have supernatural abilities called quirks, perhaps a mutation gained via ability user in the past. While plausible, any major events that had happened in the past aren't documented at all. No Great War, nothing. Possibility 2. he somehow ended up in a different reality altogether. This leads to many different questions. Other than how this has happened, here's what it would mean. Is he the only person from his own reality here? If the people from his world are here, is another him walking around? If not, did a Dazai of this world already exist? Did he not die, but read the memory of another him? From what he's gathered, abilities aren't a thing in this world, and if they are, then it's unknown. Seeing his own ability no longer human is still humming under his skin, the fastest way to figure out if he belongs in this world would be to get an X-ray. If his ability is now a quirk, that would raise the chances that he's always belonged to this world. If not, then he narrows the possibilities down. He'd probably have to find a hospital to sneak into, but before that, he desperately needs new clothes. Theft isn't something he's above, but something long-term would be more ideal. Perhaps he could find a shop to pawn some of his accessories. While historical events don't seem to align with this world, there are some similarities. For now, though, Dazai's main hope is that his brain would just shut up and let him sleep. He'll need it for what's to come.